Keep watching The Politics every Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time on New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity.
Welcome to Talking Politics today. As you can see, I am wearing the green, and I write for the Bronx Chronicle, as you can see by my official New York City press card. I also contribute to the Co-op City News and Parkchester Times, which the latter, like this show, is part of Muslim Media Corporation. I also have a blog at 100%.blogspot.com and Facebook pages at 100% and What is Going On in Your Community Board. The views expressed on this show are that of the host, any guest, or any commentator whose comments you see scrolling along the bottom of your screen, and not necessarily those of Muslim media. Let's quickly go to the weather, as it was a beautiful summer day yesterday at 74 degrees here in the middle of March. Today we expect a high in the 60s. Tomorrow, Saturday, it'll get a little cooler with 60, with lots of sunshine again. Sunday, it'll drop down into the 50s with possible showers. Monday, it gets a little cooler as the temperature drops down next week into the 40s. A hot topic is the Middle East, and Senator Chuck Schumer, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, the highest ranking Jewish elected official in the United States, on Thursday yesterday, for the first time called for the Israeli government to hold an election, calling it the only way to determine Israelis' path forward after the war with Hamas. However, Schumer doesn't realize that the war is not over with Hamas. He says, "I believe a new election is the only way to allow for a healthy and open decision-making process about the future of Israel at a time when so many Israelis have lost their confidence in the vision and the direction of the government," Schumer said. "There needs to be a fresh debate about the future of Israel after October 7th. In his opinion, that is best accomplished by holding an election. Current Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is an obstacle to peace." There has been pushback about these comments yesterday by Israeli ambassador to the U.S., Michael Herzog, who said in a social media post that did not mention Schumer directly, that commenting on the domestic political scene of a Democratic ally is unhelpful. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell appeared to respond on the Senate floor after Schumer's remarks, saying the Jewish state of Israel deserves an ally that acts like one. It is grotesque and hypocritical for Americans who hyperventilate about foreign interference in our own democracy to call for the removal of a democratically elected leader of Israel, McConnell said. This is unprecedented. In my own opinion, I'm sure Senator Schumer wants to move to Israel and then run for prime minister. Many people here in New York would be very happy with that. And as we move on, the presidential primary, well, it's all but cinched, and you will see a repeat of President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump, as they both clinched their parties' presidential nominations on this past Tuesday with decisive victories in a slate of low-profile primaries, setting up the general election rematch. The outcome of the contest across Georgia, Mississippi, and Washington State were never in doubt. Neither Biden, a Democrat, nor Trump, a Republican, faced major opposition, but their wins gave each of them the delegate majority needed to claim their party's nomination at the summertime national conventions. Not even halfway through the presidential calendar, Tuesday was marked as a crystallizing moment for a nation uneasy with its choices in 2024. The New York presidential primary is April 2nd, with early voting getting underway March 23rd. That's Saturday, March 23rd, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., Sunday the 24th, Monday, March 25th, also 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., Tuesday, March 26th, it's 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., Wednesday and Thursday, March 27th and 28th, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m., Friday, March 29th, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m., and Saturday, March 30th, it's 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. with, again, the presidential primary going on at Tuesday, April 2nd, where the polls will be open 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. However, there is no longer any doubt that the fall election will feature a rematch between two flawed and unpopular presidents. At 81, Biden is already the oldest president in United States history, while the 77-year-old Trump is facing decades in prison as a defendant in 4 criminal cases. Their rematch, the first featuring 2 United States presidents since 1912, will almost certainly deepen the nation's searing political and cultural divides over the 8-month grind that lies ahead. And Wednesday, a Georgia judge dismissed 3 of the 13 charges against former President Donald Trump and some of the charges against his allies in a sweeping election interference case, but declined to dismiss the entire indictment. Let's see. Banning TikTok is just a step to block the bad press kids holding those power. And you know what? Let me just turn over here and say that the House of Representatives voted on Wednesday to approve a bill that would force the Chinese company ByteDance to sell TikTok to its United States entity or face a total ban in the United States. The vote passed with an overwhelming bipartisan majority, 352 to 65, where after allegations from the House Senate Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party that the company is sharing data from millions of United States users to China. So is TikTok banned in the United States? Not yet. Although President Biden said he would support such legislation if it came to his desk, the bill passed, like I said, overwhelmingly in the House. It faces, though, uncertain support in the Senate. Biden joined with the social media service in February as part of his presidential campaign, presumably to appeal to younger voters. According to the bill, ByteDance has 6 months to sell TikTok to the U.S. before facing a total ban of the app. New York City representatives who voted, Congressman Jamal Bowman, Adriano Espaillat, Gregory Meeks, Congresswoman Meng, Congressman Gerald Nadler, Congresswoman Ocasio-Cortez, and Nidia Velazquez voted against the bill, while Congressman Richie Torres, Dan Goldman, Hakeem Jeffries, and Congresswoman Yvette Clarke, along with Republican Congresswoman Nicole Malliotakis, all voted in favor of the bill. Now, we do have 2 races here locally that are drawing a little attention. It appears that Congresswoman Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez will face her first primary opponent since being elected in the June 25th Democratic primary by Martin V. Dolan, who spent 30 years working for Jefferies Financial Group Incorporated, and he is mounting a long shot challenge against Ocasio-Cortez in this June primary. Meanwhile, Congressman Jamal Bowman mocked his Democratic primary opponent, George Latimer, online for stumping, basically alone in the congressional district, while Bowman appeared to be in San Francisco raising money from tech millionaires. Yeah, that's how you do it. Okay. Whoops, sorry about that. Yesterday, in Brooklyn, a man was shot in the head with his own gun following a heated fistfight on a packed Brooklyn subway train. According to police and video of the incident, sending panicked rush hour passengers that were fleeing out the doors and basically panicking and jumping for the floor on the platform outside the Hoyt-Skimmelhorn station. So here's what happened. A 32-year-old man got on the Manhattan-bound C train at the Bedford-Stuyvesant station, where he was met by a 36-year-old man who witnesses say immediately targeted him. Police said last night that he was yelling obscenities at the younger man, challenging him into a fight. As the train continued on, the 2 men came to blows, with the older man eventually holding the other one down with the weight of his body. There's shocking video that shows a woman on the train repeatedly striking the older man in the back as he yells, "You stabbed me in the back." A civilian apparently broke up the fight, and the younger man and woman went to a corner by one of the ends of the train as blood appeared to stain the 36-year-old's shirt on another video. He points to the woman and accuses her of stabbing him. Then he pulls a handgun out of his jacket pocket and walks to the duo, saying, "You stabbed me, right?" And strap hangers see the gun. They run to the other end of the car and say, "Let me out of here. Let me out of here." The younger man then fights with the gunman, gets hold of the firearm, and fires multiple shots, striking the older individual, witnesses said. The chaos then spilled out as the train pulled into the Hoyt-Skimmelhorn station in downtown Brooklyn at about 4:45 p.m., the report says. Multiple officers on the platform heard the shots and gave the 36-year-old gunshot victim medical assistance. The police were telling everybody to get down, stay down, while the train doors stayed open. One person said it was an extremely terrifying moment and people were afraid for their lives. Medics rushed the 36-year-old, whose name was not immediately reduced, to the New York Presbyterian Brooklyn Methodist Hospital, where he is fighting for his life. They also took the shooter into custody on the platform and recovered a firearm there, according to the police. Major crime, which Mayor Eric Adams says is down 15%, while the New York City Police Department classifies their 7 cases as murder, rape, robbery, felony assault, burglary, and grand larceny. And the New York City Police says crime in the transit system is up 13.2%. And they also say as of Sunday, there were 8 shooting victims in the city transit system, whereas at the same time last year, there was just 1 such victim. Yes, Mr. AJ. Good. Yeah, right. Okay. Let me move on. Now, there was a roundup of ghost cars this past week by New York City Mayor Eric Adams, Governor Kathy Hochul, Police Commissioner Caban, and others, who announced the launch of a multi-agency city-state task force dedicated to identifying and removing so-called ghost cars. Cars that are virtually untraceable by traffic cameras and toll readers because their forged or altered license plates are on New York City streets and can't be read. Outlaws have been purchasing fake or paper license plates online to avoid tolls and tickets, as well as to evade accountability for serious crimes. But we're pumping the brakes on these ghost plates with the help of this multi-task force, says Mayor Adams. Working in tandem with our city and state enforcement partners, we impounded 73 vehicles, issued 282 summonses, made 8 arrests, and sent an important message to everyone who drives on the streets of New York City. No one is above the law. By launching this city-state task force, we are sending a message: if you attempt to alter your license plate, avoid traffic cameras and toll readers, notice it's toll readers, you will be caught, said Governor Hochul. Now I'm calling on the legislature to join our efforts and work with us to pass additional protections for New Yorkers in the final budget. Toll dodging has cost the MTA an estimated $50 million each year, said MTA Chairman Jan Olivo. The primary focus on the task force work is to remove vehicles with fraudulent or modified license plates, and those with no tags at all from city streets, as these vehicles are often unregistered, uninsured, or even stolen. At its first outing, performed at 3 bridges, the Robert F. Kennedy Bridge, the George Washington Bridge, and Lincoln Tunnel, which entering Manhattan, law enforcement utilized police vehicles, including various sized tow trucks, automated license plate reading technology, and officer observations. In addition to outside agencies, the NYPD units involved included the Highway Patrol's citywide Traffic Task Force, the Auto Crime Division, Traffic Enforcement Division, Aviation Unit, and others. Now, notice how this is a priority now that congestion pricing is only a few months away. On The View, which I never watch because I don't like The View, I don't like the people on there, especially the host, who I'm going to talk about for a moment, Whoopi Goldberg. She had Governor Kathy Hochul on her show, or on The View, and she gave the governor an earful during the show. She said over the congestion pricing toll plan, she is joining a chorus of opponents to the toll as she ripped the plan to charge drivers $15 to enter the core of Manhattan. She said, while she can afford it, living in a $3 million estate in New Jersey, coming into New York, she says the $15 is nothing to her. But she says, while she can afford it, what about all the workers who work with her, all the stagehands and others who must drive in, and they cannot afford the $15 toll? It is getting close to my commercial, so I will end with one house budgets before I go to commercial. The State Senate and Assembly unveiled their one house budget proposals, pitching a housing compromise that would create a new developer tax break tied to new tenant protections. They also want taxes on wealthy New Yorkers. The Senate proposes to add $13.4 billion to the governor's $223 billion budget, increasing Medicaid spending, and school aid, adding school funding, while the Assembly proposes a 13.1 billion increase, which is similar to the Senate. And Hasty has told reporters, Speaker Carl Hasty on Wednesday, the prospect of getting a budget deal before Easter, now that negotiations are really getting underway, or you could say in 15 days, in Albany is a lifetime, and the state budget is due on April 1st. Besides the state budget, then the city budget is due on July 1st, depending on what the state does. So I'm at my point here. Let me break here for a commercial. I'll come back with some more city news, rising seawater levels, and the new Metro North proposal for the Morris Park and Van Ness stations and what it could do to those communities. So let me take a break here right now.
Do you know that there is a publishing company that wants to make life easier for you as a writer? This publishing company is called World Inkers Printing and Publishing. We publish in all different languages, and we're looking for writers of all genres, all formats. We're looking for scholars, ghostwriters, playwrights, poets, short fiction, novelists, you name it. We're looking for anybody who is interested in writing and the craft of writing to be in touch with us. You can reach us at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. With World Inkers Printing and Publishing, you do not require a lot of money to publish with us. Contact us today at info.worldinkers@gmail.com. Become a winner with other authors at World Inkers Printing and Publishing. Give us a shot. We will surely finish you.
Welcome back. Unfortunately, there is no guest this week. Next week, I hope to have a guest. What's that, Kevin? Whoopi hasn't driven in 20 years. Well, she rides in her limousine or her chauffeur-driven car, okay? Look at the cars around your local police precinct to find the first 100 block plates. Kevin, I want to see that bike lane put in on Eastchester Road and right in front of the police precinct and the hospital entrance for the ambulances. I want to see how bikers, if they're going to yield to police vehicles or the ambulances or not. Okay, let me continue. All right, I'm just going to ignore the rest of these comments that are coming up. The majority of the New York, this is with the mayor's budget cuts, okay? The majority of New York City public libraries are being forced to cut their hours yet again to just 5 days a week if Mayor Adams' proposed $58.3 million budget cuts go ahead. The president of the Big Apple's 3 library systems warned Tuesday. Since November, the city's more than 200 public library branches have already shut every Sunday to offset the surging cost of the local migrant crisis. On Tuesday, the presidents of the New York, Brooklyn, and Queens public library systems laid bare the possibility of further reductions in services as they testified before a city council hearing about the mayor's looming 2025 fiscal year budget cut. The New York City Public Library covers not only Manhattan, but the Bronx and Staten Island. On a different note, Albany legislators dealt Mayor Adams a major blow on Tuesday, leaving him increasingly alone in his bid to extend mayoral control over the Big Apple public schools. Lawmakers left an extension of mayoral control out of their spending budget proposals released late Monday and early Tuesday, casting significant doubt on the provision being included in a final budget deal in the coming weeks. The teachers know how to best educate the students. It's not one guy at City Hall who knows what's best. It's the teachers, said State Senator John Liu, who is the Senate Education Chair, as he told a crowd of 100 educators from the United Teachers Federation of Teachers gathered in Albany on Monday. Mayoral control ends in 1 year, and New York City Schools Chancellor David Banks declared he has no interest in keeping his job if Mayor Adams doesn't have the power to oversee local public schools after mayoral control was not included in state legislature one-house budgets. Now, School Chancellor David Banks may not remember, but as a former parent leader many years ago, the mayor did have control. He appointed members to the old City Board of Education, and each borough president had 1 member. There were 7 members total, so he had 2 members, and all he had to do was get together with 1 or 2 borough presidents, and he had complete control of the city's public schools. Let me move on to rising water. Sea levels surrounding New York cities are expected to rise at least 6 to 9 inches in the 2030s and potentially up to 13 inches in some areas due to climate change, according to state projections. This is nothing new. This was done about 10 years ago when Mayor Michael Bloomberg was in office after one of the major storms, and rising water levels has been a concern since then. This assessment done by the State Department of Environmental Conservation, though, also claims that sea levels in the lower Hudson River could swell by 23 inches in the 2050s and up to 45 inches in the 2080s. Again, I'm talking about the Metro North line by the bottom of Riverdale. During Hurricane Sandy, it flooded, and they had to take their transformers, which were all flooded, and move them to higher ground. What this is saying, that they may have to move them elsewhere or even higher because those tracks should be underwater. The problem, and the reason nothing is being done, is because the water recedes and the trains can continue once the water recedes after a major storm. Sea level rise is one of the most direct and observable effects of climate change in New York, and the DEC is required by law to develop science-based sea level projections to guide decision-making and permitting the areas at risk, the DEC said in a statement. By 2100, downstate sea levels could surge by 25 to 65 inches. A worst-case scenario could see a staggering 114-inch rise by the end of the century under rapid ice melt projections. Such a dramatic rise in sea level could decimate low-lying areas in the Big Apple that were pummeled during Hurricane Sandy in 2012. The DEC posted a projection of sea levels on the New York State Register based on its studies of global models. The agency is required to periodically post sea level projections under the Community Risk and Resiliency Act. New York is leading the nation to address the impacts of climate change, which include heat waves, floods, more frequent storms, and sea level rises, said the DEC. They are intended as a guide to assist state and local planners and regulators in making decisions to address more storm-related floods. Ultimately, both the rate of rising sea levels and the level of rise over time will be determined by the severity of global greenhouse gas emissions, officials say. Addressing climate change without hurting businesses and consumers is easier said than done. Last year, Governor Hochul sparked outrage when she outlawed the use of gas stoves in all new residential buildings. And it is a major concern. Here in the Bronx, by 2100, City Island could be underwater. And many of the coastal areas, like I said, by Riverdale and by other areas in the Bronx, you may see, for instance, like by Country Club and Silver Beach, they have the water coming up to their houses and flooding basements. It's a reality. It's happening now, even in areas that are in flood zones, because the current sewer system cannot handle the overflow from these major storms. There are two pipes that have been in use. One flows right into the Hudson River, and the other one goes down past Soundview. That when there are big storms like we've had recently where the sewer systems can't handle the overflow of all this extra rain, they just put it right into the Hudson River or East River. This is raw sewerage at times going out too. And if you notice by some of the handicap ramps that you'll have floods now at these new handicap ramps, the way they have been built. And then when the water recedes, you'll see all the schmutz or garbage that is left over by the moving water that has moved this from one end of the street, and they wind up at these handicap zones. So you're going to have to be careful when we have heavy rains, as your basement is going to start to flood, as people have seen. But let's move on to another subject, which we'll get into the city, yes, hopefully before the show ends, which wants you to have basement apartments and extra apartments. But Bronx Community Board 11's Land Use and Transportation Committee is holding a public hearing on the new Metro North stations for the Bronx at Morris Park and Van Ness Parkchester on Monday, March 24th at 7 p.m. This is an in-person meeting as of today because there is no virtual option. And by the way, in July of 2024, later on this year, community boards are supposed to go back to full in-person meetings. This meeting by Community Board 11 is being held at the Residence Inn, which is the Marriott Hotel, Metro Center Atrium at 1776 Eastchester Road, Meeting Room A and B. The agenda includes introductions and then the Bronx Metro North stations. There is the area study, which is the zoning plan projects 22X0431, which the Bronx Metro North plan is a community-informed vision for growth around 2 of the 4 planned Metro North stations to be built in the Bronx. The study identifies strategies for growing housing, encouraging job growth, promoting neighborhood retail, and incentivizing an improved public realm around the Morris Park and Parkchester Van Ness stations. 2 of the 4 Metro North stations to be built as part of the Penn State Access Project. Now, these 2 stations lie about 85 to 90% in Community Board 11, so it's going to directly affect Community Board 11. The original plans for the 4 Metro North stations were 0 housing. This is back in 2018, and up until 2022, when Mayor Adams came in, there was no housing proposed at these 4 Metro North stations. All of a sudden, Mayor Adams decided, I want 6,000 units of housing at the Morris Park and the Parkchester Van Ness station, which would be about 3,000 at each station. And it's now been up to 7,500 units of housing at the stations. Plus, there is going to be a 21-story building on the Jacoby campus being built for Montefiore Hospital for Life Sciences. All right, let me continue. Item B is the Unionport Road demapping. This is an application by the City Department of Planning for a change in the city map involving the elimination, discontinuance, and closing of Unionport Road between East Tremont and Gotherland Street in Community Board 9 for a 17-story building. This is the block from White Plains Road to Unionport Road. Obviously, they want to move it a little more, where a 17-story building will be built that will house it's 175 feet for 424 residential units, of which 130 will be inclusionary housing units, which is supposed to be affordable housing, and 719 square feet of commercial space. Gee, that's a lot of commercial space. Then there is item C, the Bronxdale mapping, planning projects 24X0205. 1601 Bronxdale Property Owners, LLC, AKC. The applicant is proposing a change to the city map. The proposed project involving the mapping of a new street network on a portion of Bronx Block 4042, Lot 200, aka also known as 1601 Bronxdale Avenue, in the Van Ness neighborhood of Community District 11. It says Parkchester on the agenda, but it's Van Ness, because that's Community Board 11. Parkchester is in Community Board 9. The area to be mapped, or the project area, is located on the southeast corner of Block 4042. This is for an 18-story, 2,083 unit development. It is currently zoned M1, which is 1 story. The proposed zoning is for M1 1A/R7-3. which allows a maximum height of 185 feet, or 18 stories, which is 2,083 residential units, including 522 inclusionary housing units of affordable housing, which city planning claims is a lifetime of affordable housing, but its lifetime is only 30 years. And when I questioned the city planning person at one of these meetings, I said, what happens after 30 years? Well, it's hoped that the developer or the owner of the building will continue with the plan. Otherwise, they get unregulated. It will include 120,000 square feet of a community facility, 32, which could be a school, because schools are going to be needed in that area, 32,154 square feet of commercial, and then it also includes 223,909 square feet of industrial area. The next parts are the Marconi Street widening. This is for the changing of the city map involving the mapping of portion of Block 4226 to widen the existing Marconi Street in the Morris Park neighborhood of Bronx Community Board 11. That is for the station on the Metro North on the Hutch Metro Center area, the other side which is right near the Marriott Hotel that was built. So it was nice, conveniently, that the hotel went up right next to the tracks, and now the proposed station that was talked about in the 90s will be built. Then there is zoning project 24X0207. They're proposing to changing the map, involving the mapping of a new pedestrian plaza on block 4209, lots 10 and 70. Also known as 1320 Morris Park Avenue in the Morris Park neighborhood of Community District 11. It's related to the Bronx Metro North study area building, and you're going to love this one. It's a building of unknown height, which, since you're going to have a 21-story building for Montefiore Hospital on Jacoby's property, this building could be up to 21 stories. Then there's the Marconi Street Bridge that has to put the two sides of the station together. So you go over the Metro North tracks to get to the Hutch Metro Center or our Marriott Hotel, and then to the street. This rezoning is bringing over 7,500 new units of housing to the two Metro North stations at Morris Park and Parkchester Van Ness. Like I said, there was no new housing on the original plans. There is no new housing for Co-op City or the Mott Haven Metro North stations. It will change the neighborhoods of Van Ness and Morris Park completely by bringing new, taller, out-of-context buildings that will only multiply once the first out-of-context buildings are built, since there are others that they will no longer be out of context. Like I said, there's a proposal for Baker Avenue for a building that's currently R5, which is 5 stories or 55 feet. They want to change the zoning to R6A or R61/C24, which would be either a height of 95 feet in the R6A or 125 feet in the R6C241, which would be 12 stories. There is nothing, when I asked the city planning person who was there, what's to prevent next to it a developer buying homes, which developers already own homes in Van Ness. They're called zombie homes. They're just letting them sit there. They're depressing the poor Van Ness area so they can buy more homes. And I said, what's to prevent the property owner from the next block from building the same, because he'll be right next to his 12-story building, and there is nothing that will prevent more buildings that will be 12 stories or whatever the heights are. And if you can see in Riverdale, there was a proposal one time in 2013 for an 11-story medical center for Montefiore that was rejected by the community. As a matter of fact, then State Senator Jeff Klein and Assemblyman Jeffrey Dinowitz, who was still in office, proposed and got passed a new law in the state legislature that a health center could not be more than 3 stories high or 30,000 square feet in total. And Montefiore had abandoned their plan to build there an 11-story and even went down to a 6-story building, but they abandoned it, and it was left vacant for 10 years until now. That's their developers bought the property from Simone Developers, who owned it. And since there were 2 14-story buildings in back of the property, Stag Developers has built a 17-story building right on Riverdale Avenue at 138th Street, which is not out of context with those 2 14-story buildings. The reason that they went 17 stories is they have put in an affordable housing piece, which gave them the extra 3 floors. Had they put in a community facility, they could have gone up to 20 stories. So this is what's happening. There's more to talk about. The City of Yes proposal. Community Board 11 has their City of Yes committee finally in place. I am on that City of Yes committee. I will be helping the other members of the committee. We had a few of us got together and had a discussion about what needs to be done, and Community Board 11 needs to get right away into the City of Yes for housing opportunity. There were 3 parts. They missed the first 2 parts, actually. The first part was carbon neutrality, which there was no comment by the Community Board 11. And on the economic opportunity, the part that the community board had proposed was basically, they had proposed changes to certain things, but it was sent in as a no, a complete no, rather than a partial no. So Community Board 11 has a lot of work to do ahead with this Metro North rezoning and the City of Yes for housing opportunity, which is going to make buildings even higher. And I'll discuss the City of Yes on my next show if I have time. So I see I'm running over, so let me thank everybody for watching. And I hope to see you next week, and have a good weekend, and tune in next week. Thank you.
In a world where the quality of information available to poorer communities is doctored, tainted, and sometimes regressive, where the words fake news have come to mean other people's opinions, it is vital to rely on news platforms with journalists who have feet on the ground and can report the truth. New York Parrot, a New York-based national and global news outlet, is changing the narratives of media operations. We focus on the news that matters, like self-empowerment, entrepreneurship, finances, health, security, politics, and more. We strive to curb violence, racial and economic discrimination, and to promote peace and socio-economic development of multiculturally diverse world. As we give voice